Good morning, everybody. Hola, all that good stuff. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. This is A Marvelous, and I'm back giving you more topics, more frames of reference for you to spark those brain cells. So, once again, I really appreciate you tuning in, giving me your attention and your time, because those are two things you can't get back no matter how much you try. So, thank you. I definitely appreciate that. We're going to jump right into it today. Today, this is part five of why the news and media has to fake events. And I was actually looking forward to this one because this is where I actually show legally and by law how fake news has been acknowledged by politicians and even the president, and has been used for decades. Manufactured news stories, fake news stories, and things like that. And how your local news broadcasters are aware of this, they are a part of this, and it's connected between your local broadcasters throughout the country to the politicians and members in government to private PR firms. All are responsible for fake news stories, even to this day. So today we're going to show legally by law how not only has this been acknowledged, but there were actually politicians and I guess you could say civil liberty organizations that were attempting to stop this and actually promote more truth and disclosure in terms of the news that we receive. A lot of times we watch the news and we take it at face value. We take it as real. We take it as true. The thought that these news stories are with actors, they're not real, meaning that they didn't organically take place from human beings in natural circumstances, as opposed to having actors hand deliver a message that was pre-given to them in order to convey a message. And that's what's going on now. That's what's been going on. And as I do more videos, I'm going to get to the point where in real time I can have, like, let's say a newspaper article similar to this one, right? And show how these newspaper articles, whether it's the pictures, the images, the words you see, the date, the colors, and even on TV, how these newspaper articles are actually triggers for individuals that are in this country, that when they see something like this, they are programmed to act and operate and carry out an order. So I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm going to do that in other videos where in real time you can actually see it manifest. But just keep that in mind. You know, these newspapers actually have staff. They actually have individuals whose job it is to capture your attention through headlines. Even like this one, baby killers, ISIS and its subhuman followers must be proud. You know, all of this is called propaganda. It's meant to instill images in your mind about a group, right? That you probably did not care or know about 10 years ago, you know, and this same group has been transformed. It was Taliban with Bill Clinton, Al-Quaeda with George Bush, and now ISIS with Barack Obama. And then when Hillary Clinton wins, it's going to be another name. And they have to switch names because each of these organizations are CIA affiliated, products of the United States government, and a lot of them don't do organically what they're claimed to do, so the name switches according to the president. But we'll get to those in other videos. With that, today, there is actually laws or bills that was attempted to be passed in the House and Senate regarding fake news. George Bush is actually on video admitting to fake news, justifying it, and things like that. It was so rampant during the Bush administration and even the Clinton administration, but it had its apex in the Bush administration, that certain politicians actually sponsored bills to be passed to kind of make a disclosure for fake news. So we're going to cover that one. Before I name the bills and go over them, I'm going to read a little bit from the New York Times article back in March 13th, 2005, Bush administration. It's called Under Bush, A New Age of Prepackaged TV News. So this is New York Times, March 13th, 2005. It's called Under Bush, A New Age of Prepackaged TV News. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Under the Bush administration, the federal government has aggressively used a well-established tool of public relations, the prepackaged, ready-to-serve news report that major corporations have long distributed to TV stations, to pitch everything from headache remedies to auto insurance. In all, at least 20 federal agencies, including the Defense Department and the Census Bureau, have made and distributed hundreds of television news segments in the past 4 years, records and interviews show. Many were subsequently broadcast on local stations across the country without any acknowledgement of the government's role in their production. I'm going to continue. An examination of government-produced news reports offers a look inside a world where the traditional lines between public relations and journalism have become tangled, where local anchors introduce pre-packaged segments with suggested lead-ins written by public relations experts. It is a world where government-produced reports disappear into a maze of satellite transmissions, web portals, syndicated news programs, and network feeds, only to emerge cleansed on the other side as independent journalism. So I'm going to stop there from reading the article, and I'm going to say this. A lot of people, when they see the news, like I said, they don't believe that it's possible to have fake news stories. They don't believe that it's possible for things like mass shootings to be scripted and staged and set out in motion. So the reason why I chose to do this series of videos is because it's out of hand now. I mean, it's ridiculous, the type of stuff that you see, and then what follows that is agendas being pushed in terms of rights being restricted, which most people say rights aren't, and that's false. And like I said before, whenever you see riots, whenever you see increases in police brutality, and you see all of these things in the media, all of that is outcome. That is a after effect of what was laid down, the groundwork or foundation of something that was done prior that we had no clue about. And those foundations are the law. The law is the backbone of any country, especially in the United States. The law has a unique history with America. The U.S. isn't even supposed to have lawyers or attorneys. That was a creation, use of England. England has the lawyers and attorneys and titles of nobility. This country is not legally supposed to have attorneys, and that's partly what the War of 1812 was about. But that's another video. So what I'm saying is, not only is it possible, but it's acknowledged. So there was two acts. They're really the same, but the name switched. One act that was attempted to be passed was called the Truth in Broadcasting Act. And that was introduced, ironically, by a presidential candidate, someone running for president, John Kerry. Senator John Kerry introduced what's called the Truth in Broadcasting Act. And this act, this bill, would require all prepackaged news stories produced by executive branch agencies to contain a continuously visible disclaimer stating produced by the U.S. government when aired on U.S. television stations. The bill does not require disclaimers from broadcasters. The disclaimer would not be required for reports from government-supported news agencies like PBS and NPR, or for international broadcasts, since the U.S. government has no prohibition on exporting propaganda. Broadcasting and cable suggest that the bill has a good chance of becoming law, given the overwhelming support of a similar measure authored by Senator Robert Byrd. So what is that? It's a bill that was put in to restrict fake news. Why? Because it was getting out of hand. So basically what that's saying is this: when you watch the news, or you listen to the news, there's two things. It's called video newsreels, VNRs, or audio newsreels, ANRs. And anytime a news story was prepackaged, which means was created by an entity with actors, not something that happened organically, and it was given to these radio stations or TV stations, a disclaimer would legally have to be put on the broadcast saying who it was paid for. A government disclaimer. That was the purpose of the bill. So this way you separate organic news from prepackaged news. That was the purpose of the bill. The bill, actually, I think it was originally called, and this was another act, it was called the Prepackaged News Story Announcement Act of 2005. 109th Congress, S.967. And that was sponsored by Frank Lautenberg, also the same individual who worked with John Kerry to bring in the Truth in Broadcasting Act. So again, April 28th, 2005, the Prepackaged News Story Announcement Act of 2005 was introduced. And the purpose of this, like I said, this was a bill to amend the Communications Act of 1934 to ensure that prepackaged news stories contained announcements that inform viewers that the information within was provided by the United States government and for other purposes. So this has been going on for decades. This is a bill that they're saying here was to amend the Communications Act of 1934. So if this has been going on this long, how is it that it's far-fetched? It's because people don't have the information. So when you see a mass shooting, when you see a lone gunman, you have to start understanding that you do not have a direct tie to who's putting this information out. So therefore, you have to trust and believe the entities that's putting this out there. But these acts, and you could look up George Bush actually acknowledging prepackaged fake news. So these bills were put in place to inform the people that, listen, you have to know that this story is real, this story is fake, period. And that is the purpose of these bills. The fact that bills were introduced to get passed shows clear proof that the news has and still does have fake news stories. So from now on, when you see a terrorist attack or a mass shooting, a lone gunman, you have to question yourself and say, okay, is this something that was staged? Now, when I say fake, there's different kinds of fake, right? There's fake in which an event can take place. Like, let's take Orlando, right? People could have gotten killed. Facts. Could be. It's very possible. However, how the killing took place is where it starts to be scripted and staged. For instance, if a person just had if a person has mental issues, no government affiliation, they just go crazy, it is very possible that this individual can lose it one day and just start killing people. That is true. If you look at the movie with Michael Douglas called Falling Down by Michael Douglas, that movie is about a man who's played by the rules, worked hard, but he's had a lot of hard breaks in life. He got a separation from his wife, so he doesn't see his daughter that much. Him and his ex-wife are not on good terms. I believe he got fired from his job, or he just quit, or he was just having a rough time at his job. So one day he loses it. All the stress builds up. He gets his shotgun, loads up in his car, and he just goes crazy throughout Los Angeles, and just starts getting into trouble, shooting up fast food restaurants, having fights with gang members. So I give that example to say that that's possible, and that's why these movies are made, is because the movies that are made and the people that produce them, they also have knowledge of what's going on. So when a movie is put out there, remember, movies are meant to deliver a message through entertainment, period. So that's very possible. But what happens is, when you see these mass shootings, it's not someone that is just mentally crazy. It's not someone that's not affiliated with some kind of organization like the government or things like that. And if it is, those people at one point did have those connections. So what you're seeing is individuals that are actually trained and programmed to carry out something. So I bring this example. So if a person has been traumatized and they have been put in an institution, like let's say Tavistock Institute or something like that, hint, hint, and their mind is put under conditioning and their brain is split up, and let's say one part of their brain is drilled baby killer, baby killer, baby killer. If that's done for a certain amount of time, that part of the brain is now associated with that act. So when they see something like this, it activates that and it's carried out. Okay, so that's important. So if that's the case, that's not something that's organic. That's something that's pre-programmed. So when that trigger happens, then they go out and they carry out a mission. And that's what's going on. And that is when it is staged and when it's scripted. Then you have to start looking at time frame. You have to start looking at symbols, other events that go on. All of these things take place in order to present to you what you see as real. Then when the media covers it, it has its actors, its crisis actors that come in, and now they come in and surround the news story with their scripts, and then they're distraught and they're crying and things like that. That's why you should always give a week to 3 weeks after an event happens before you start reacting emotionally or rationally, because then you start to see the truth. What do I mean by that? Right now, if you look at the Orlando shooting, it's about 2 weeks, a little bit more. What has come out? A judge, I believe a federal judge, has acknowledged that there was no killings in the Orlando shooting until about 5:12, 5:13 a.m. when the SWAT team arrived. Think about that. If the media is saying that this guy Omar Mateen was shooting up people around 2 a.m., and that's what the reports were saying, and now if you look at the official FBI transcripts of the timeline, no one died before 5 a.m. No one started to get killed until the SWAT team arrived. A judge is saying this on TV. Don't believe me? Research it. So what is that telling you? If the reports initially are saying that this happened at this time by this killer who's associated with ISIS, right? And then weeks later you get the reports by FBI, by the judge saying that this didn't happen. Now you have a discrepancy. So this is how you could see what's real and what's not. So facts, I'm assuming facts, people did die, but how did they die and who killed them? And this is something you have to look at when you're looking at the news. So this bill that you're seeing, the Prepackaged News Story Announcement Act of 2005, if indeed you did have actors participating in the news story, like let's say Orlando, right? That right there blurs the line of reality and what really happened. Because if people did die, yes, and there was someone with guns like Omar Mateen on the scene, but no one died until the SWAT got there, and it was acknowledged that some of the police killed some of these people. And if the people that's reporting in the news are not actually people that were either in the club or were actors that were paid to be on the scene, then that is now blurring the line. And this law that was proposed, these two bills, would have to be on the screen and I let you know what happened and what didn't. And the fact that we don't see this now is a violation of your perception, and to some degree it's a violation of integrity. And had this law passed, it would be breaking the law. So that's something to consider. So when you read the Prepackaged News Story Announcement Act of 2005, the Truth in Broadcasting Act of 2005, and then you see these incidents that happen, then you'll start to see, wait a minute. If you add the fact that some of these killers, if you look at their history, really look at their history, Omar Mateen's father was CIA affiliated, you start to ask yourself, are these organic killers or are these trained killers? That's one. Once you start to do the research on that, if they're trained killers, then you know that they have a mission to set out to do something. A. B. If this event took place, like Orlando or like Virginia Tech, are all the people you see on media actual participants in this event, or are they hired and given a script to say in order to promote a theme or a message? right? Because if you look at what happened after all these events, either a country is bombed or laws are passed and you didn't know. And this one is so blatant because people are doing sit-ins and all type of stuff in the House and Senate when these things happen, after these things happen. So an event happens, laws are passed. These events are prepackaged, premeditated, and then presented to you as real. So if you look up these laws, you'll see that this is an epidemic that's been going on. Epidemic. It's been ridiculous. Hundreds of stations have been given prepackaged news, and it still goes on. So that's why I had to make this video. So this is how you get to see what's real. Train killers, prepackaged news, legally, it shows prepackaged news. You start to see things in real time and you start to decipher what's what. And that's why it's good to look at alternative media outside of the US, because you get to see a whole package. And then as you get to, that's the beauty of technology, is that it allows you to do your homework and do your research. So that's why I wanted to make part 5, to show legally that fake news and prepackaged news has been acknowledged. It's been laws in Congress that were attempted to get enacted. This isn't something that I made up. Once again, Prepackaged News Story Announcement Act of 2005. So I suggest, and I've already started, to contact your senators and your congressmen and see what's up with this bill. How can it get passed again? How can we make it to where it sticks? So if everyone floods the Senate and floods your congressmen, Prepackaged News Story Announcement Act of 2005, then you'll start to see the pushback, and then you'll start to see what's really possible. Because if these things really happen, right, and these events are real, they're not scripted, then there should be no issue with getting these bills enacted to make sure and enforced, so this way we know what's real. But other than that, trust me, prepackaged news, you can research it, you'll see it. It's been going on for decades, 20, 30, 40 years, even 50 years, back since the 70s, possibly before that. Look up, a Manchurian candidates and things like that. So these things are no longer in the realm of conspiracy theories. These are actual laws that were passed. These are things that are actually real, founded in truth, founded in research, and you can see for yourself that this isn't something that was made up by individuals. This was just so bad that congressmen and senators tried to get the law passed, so therefore you can have more truth and balance in the news. So with that, I can go a lot further, but do your research. Look up the transcripts in Orlando. Look up Sandy Hook, where none of the children got killed, things like that. And you'll start to see how it works. And then, like I said, in future articles, I'll start to show real time with newspapers and things like that how these are triggers and how these happen over events in order to distract people. And again, albino alligators, that's all these are. When your attention is one way, laws are passed the other way. That's how it works. Big event, you're looking this way, laws are passed that way. If everyone's attention was during the laws and where we should have been, then you'll be more likely to question and block whatever laws are trying to be passed. And in the next video, I'll cover that, how a lot of our rights have been eroded due to Obama and things like that. So this country is great. I love America, and it could be greater with some more balance. So that's the purpose of these videos, is to say I love America, provide balance, and question. So once again, I can't say it enough. You don't have to believe me. Prepackaged News Story Announcement Act of 2005, legal proof that these stories is staged, scripted, and it's going to continue to happen unless people wake up. So with that, thank you for your attention. You can't get that back. And start the conversation. That's the best you could do. Talk to you soon. Peace.